Christ as the communicator might need some explanation. God the Son is the Word of God. Jesus is the communication of who God is to the entirety of creation. God the Son is the example for humanity of how to relate to God as a human being. The word for this type of communication is revelation. Jesus has revealed God to us. In reference to Jesus Christ, John refers to Jesus Christ as the Word, as in John 1:14 and 18 says, "The Word became flesh and took up residence among us. We observed his glory, the glory as the one and only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth." No one has ever seen God, the one and only Son, the one who is at the Father's side. He has revealed him. Christ came to make God the Father known. Christ is the Word that communicates God the Father in a way that makes it possible for us to know and understand him. In Colossians 1:15, Paul writes this of Christ. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. Christ is the exact likeness of God. I find it fascinating that both verbal and visual metaphors are used in describing how Christ communicates God to humanity. Christ, through his life, death, and resurrection, makes the Trinity available for our understanding. He communicates to us the infinite, omnipotent, all-loving, holy, eternal, omnipresent Trinity. He communicates to us the Trinity in the only way we could possibly understand it. He is the Word of God and the image of God. Matthew 11:27 says, "All things have been entrusted to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son desires to reveal him." Jesus can communicate to us because he knew God. If you think about God the Son being omniscient, that would mean that God the Son knew God the Father as well as God the Father knew himself. This consistency of knowledge within the Trinity has huge implications on what it means to be three in one. For our purposes, we can draw conclusions that to be a communicator, you must know what you are communicating. A corollary to that is the better you know a subject, the better you will be able to communicate it. Also, we see in this verse the need for the decision to communicate. Christ desires to reveal. To truly communicate, we need to decide to communicate. There's a lot of nonverbal and accidental communication that exists. We often communicate things that we do not intend. However, this unintentional communication would not be work based on our definition. It would be an accident. Christ chose to communicate God to us. That choice resulted in several other decisions. He chose to put himself in a place that communication was possible. He chose to use a form that made understanding possible. Christ decided to reveal God to us. We must also decide to communicate. This decision will lead to other decisions about how to communicate. Decisions on how to best communicate require knowledge, not only on the subject trying to be communicated, but also knowledge of those to whom we are trying to communicate. Christ not only needed to know how to talk about God, but he also needed to know how to talk to people. Christ was excellent at this. Christ knew who he was talking to. In order to communicate, you need to know what you're talking about, who you are talking to, and you need to make a decision to talk. Now, how is this applicable to our work situations? As we try to learn our areas of expertise, the more intimate we are with our subject, the more we can communicate in a Christ-like manner. Have you ever thought of learning to communicate your field of expertise as something you can do like God does? Is your communication a Christ-like activity? Our decisions to communicate will lead to other decisions that will put us into a place to communicate. This can be viewed in a small way of Christ being incarnational, so that we could understand who God is. As we examine those who we are trying to communicate to, we can aspire to the image of God at work in us. Learning about the nature of humanity generally, or the concerns of persons specifically, allows us to communicate in a more Christ-like manner.